Hello, everyone. Dr. Chris Martinson here with you again of Peak Prosperity, and we've got to talk about the Title 42 invasion that just happened on May. Well, it was setting up all through May, even April, obviously, and as people migrated up to the border. So what is this Title 42? What does it mean? Let's go there and take a look at it now. This is, it's really profound what's happening here. Michael Yon, of course, is your go-to source for all of this because he's down there. He's been in the Darien Gap. He's been reporting on this all the way through. Just exceptional. So this is what we're looking at here. This is in McAllen, Texas, and there are about 15,000 Haitians who had massed at the border. So when you're thinking of these people massing at the border of Texas, sometimes you might be thinking, well, they're from Honduras, they're from Guatemala, they're from Chile, they're from South America, Central America, maybe Mexico. These people are from Haiti, which is an island. So how did they get there? Interesting question, but let's tune in. Just look at this real quick.
Go back to the regular U.S. immigration laws the way it was before COVID.
That's kind of interesting. So if we scan through that, notice, if you will, and let me just, do this.
Go back to the regular U.S. immigration.
Just look, if you will, at the age and the gender of the people who are mainly, not everybody, but mainly the people who are in that photo. So what is Title 42? In that video, I mean, the Title 42, so this was a CDC public health order, Title 42, that enabled border control people due to COVID not wanting to have COVID spreading. And, we had all these import controls about people needing to be vaccinated and not traveling and all this and that and taking tests in order to execute the public health orders they want to do. That Title 42 allowed the migrants that they were encountered to be sent right back home. So that's expiring. And then we fall under something else, which would be a Title 8, which allows for the prospect of amnesty. So there are all these people waiting for Title 42 to expire. When did it expire? 11:59 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday. And that would have been, May 11th. So at any rate, that's what Title 42 was. So if you show me the incentive, I will show you the outcome. Charlie Munger quote, I live by it. Incentives are everything. So what are the incentives in this story? Well, let's take a quick peek here. Here's some people who just came over and, would you look at that? They're getting cell phones. Again, note the gender, note the age range. So you come over, I think I see some things that look like EBT cards maybe there. I don't know for sure. But they've got documentation and cell phones. Hey, come across the border, get a cell phone. Maybe some of those cards right there. I don't know what those are necessarily. Maybe that's somebody's personal ID, but you get forms, you get greeted, you get a cell phone. So that's very different than if I tried to sneak across the border into any other country in this world. I would be treated not like this, right? And that would be the disincentive. I can't even try and sneak into Canada without running into a heap of trouble. I am not going to be greeted with a free cell phone, guaranteed. So that's the story. The incentives, obviously, are to lure people here, not to disincentivize people to come. So guess what? The outcome is lots and lots of people. In 2022, it was over 2.3 million encounters with migrants. They call them illegal immigrants. You could call them whatever you want to call them, illegal migrants. 2.4 million encounters in 2022. That is only going to be vastly higher here in 2023. Guaranteed, no question about it, because of all of these incentives that we're just talking about. Now, that's over 3 times the average from 1970 through to current. So there's clearly some incentive, some communication happened between 2021, 2022 that said, come on up. And I think we all know what that was. By the way, there are up to 700,000 people who had massed at the border waiting for Title 42 to expire. This is 100,000 people in this particular picture right here. So 700,000 is 7 times this many people coming to illegally enter the country. Now, I might notice that these are mostly what we call fighting age males. That's the age range that's in here. We see the Haitians up top. We have people from Central America, South America down below. And as well, we see here at the San Vicente camp in Darien, Panama, there's a lot of Chinese coming in, thousands of military age male Chinese immigrants. Listen, it could all be completely innocuous, but a healthy country would have a border and would have a process for trying to understand exactly who each one of these individuals is who's trying to come into the country, particularly from countries like maybe China. We might want to think that through just a little bit more carefully would be the idea. Now, I think that if you remember that cute little WEF, the World Economic Forum video from 2016, and it had 8 basic points in it. And point 1 we're all familiar with, which is you'll own nothing and be happy. There were some other points in there, but this is point 8. That's what that 8 is in the upper left corner of this picture. Western values will have been tested to the breaking point by 2030. So what are those Western values? I don't know. Private property rights, the sanctity of my privacy, the ability to own private property, the idea that I live in a nation. A Western value is maybe I have a border. I have a country that has a border. These values will have been tested to the breaking point, but more to the point, I think it's actually that our cultures are going to be tested to the breaking point, because regardless of how well-intentioned anybody is, when you bring people from one culture into another culture, and the idea is they're going to coexist peacefully in that culture, they have to assimilate into that culture, right? If you go past a certain critical mass and bring in too many people at once from a given culture, and then they just stand up like a little Italy, a little Cuba, a little whatever, they're going to keep that cultural identity intact within that smaller community. Of course they would. It's just natural. If I went to some other foreign country and there was a large expat community of Americans, that's where I would gravitate, because I know these people, I know how they think, we share values, we operate the same way, it's comfortable, I get it. Okay, so this kind of a flood here, where we have this many people coming in, this goes well beyond the assimilation standard. And so now we're having to ask the question, is it true that it's been actually Western values and cultures that are getting tested here, and is that on purpose or not? Because if it's not on purpose, it is a highly ignorant, very thoughtless sort of a way that this is being gone about in this particular story. So let's tune in now. This is in the South, I believe the 8th Ward of Chicago. Chicago suddenly got a whole bunch of these immigrants bust from the border up into their community. And here's how the community is responding. And by the way, we are going to listen to this woman here her title is really, I did not know cities had these things. She
important is that we really establish that this is a humanitarian crisis, and we're here.
Chief Engagement Officer.
South Shore residents responded with resounding rejection.
While this crisis emergency for the city of Chicago, it does not constitute an emergency for the South Shore community.
Yeah,
incoming
how about
migrants
that?
have overwhelmed district police stations by the hundreds.
It's my turn. It's my turn. Hello.
But city leaders could barely eke out a word of the details about a proposed respite center at the former South Shore High School.
When it comes to the total number of people at South Shore at any given point in time, it is fluid. We'd start with 250, 500.
How could you do that without consulting us?
I am concerned with safety in the area.
Those would be reasonable, normal, ordinary, and usual concerns. I mean, that's a normal concern. Hey, I live in this community. You're saying you're going to bring 250, maybe 500 of these folks into my community, and we just need to understand, like, are there safety concerns? Are there cultural clashes? Do these people have the same sense of private property rights, the way men and women interact? Do they have the same sense of propriety around all kinds of things? It's a legitimate question. 500 people is a huge number in one building. That's what they're proposing. And of course, the chief engagement officer here, plus I don't know who that other woman was, but they are just very clearly saying, oh, we're just going to bring in hundreds and hundreds of people. And then NIMBY stands for not in my backyard. And so a lot of people are pushing back. So this is just for 500 in a smallish area, a ward in Chicago. But there's a huge, consider this. This is a really big deal, and we ought to be talking about it, but it's just being rammed through as if we just have to accept this because this is what good and decent people do. They just allow all these people into the country, and you're not supposed to ask any questions, but you should ask questions like, can we afford this? What are they going to do? Where are they going to stay? Who's responsible for paying for their health care, their food, their training, their assimilation costs? What happens if it turns out some of these countries emptied their jails and we have a lot of violent or mentally ill people who've also been part of that mix? There are a lot of legitimate, reasonable questions, and I get the sense that there's whole sections of my country that don't want to even they want to stop all conversation about that. But these would all be normal, usual, reasonable things to talk about. So, and how are we going to afford this? I've presented this before. It turns out that Social Security is going to be completely broke by 2033. And we know there's no trust fund. It's actually already broke. If you said, how much cash does the Social Security Trust Fund have? The answer is zero. What it has, as you know, if you've been listening to me, is they have a file folder full of special Treasury obligation bonds, which is one branch of the government taking the cash from another branch and then giving it an IOU. If you did that, well, if a business did that, it would be called Enron, right? That's subsidiary accounting, right? I'm going to borrow from one subsidiary, an offshore account, and I'm going to count it as an asset over here, but I'm not going to count it as a liability over there because it's a wash, right? It should be a wash, but you just do some fancy accounting, and it looks like the Social Security has a trust fund. It doesn't. It has a bunch of IOUs that the Treasury Department's going to have to pay back. Now, is that just me saying that? Did I make this chart up? No, I absolutely did not. This comes from the Congressional Budget Office. So take it up with them if you don't like this report. Now, all of this says that we're under assault and lots of things are happening and things are changing exceptionally quickly right now. And I'm experiencing this in personal anecdotes all the time here in May of 2023, where people are telling me they're stressed. They feel like something huge is coming. Their friends are beginning to show signs of stress, that there's some impending doom, like something's going to happen, right? It's in the air. We all have this sense, what's going to happen? And of course, living in an incoherent environment where it's like, oh, because we're such loving, caring human beings, we're going to allow all these immigrants into the country. But we're also not going to talk about how we can do this in a way that's good for them, good for the communities they come into, safe for everybody, or who's going to pay for it. It's like this big air gap between the stated moral necessity of the action and the necessary actions to make sure this actually turns out to be a positive thing and not just a negative thing. So here's what you need. You need and deserve information you can trust in this time, especially since we now know that the WF has now got a CEO implanted at Twitter, one of the last bastions of free speech out there. And we know that the mainstream media is busy doing all kinds of things where it's just not providing appropriate context, or it's out and out lying or failing to report on things. So media, it's where do you get information you can trust? Well, I'm your information scout. I can do that. Our community, even more importantly, is the place where people are assembling at Peak Prosperity. So special invitation for you to join our Peak Prosperity community while you can. And you definitely need to do this if you understand the importance of knowing what's going on and then surrounding yourself with good people who are also sharing that mindset and taking action about all of these things. So I got a special offer for you in just a second. My Daily Take is something that I'm starting to put out there Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. I just start talking about what's on my desk, what's out there that I'm seeing. If you don't want to wait a whole week to find out what I'm thinking here on YouTube, come on by. And let me just show you a quick peek of what that actually, wrong mouse, what this looks like. So this is a daily take I wrote on May 4th. You know, I'm going through charts. I'm going to be showing you all sorts of memes I've come up with. I'm going to be discussing the events of the day, put some jokes in there, showing you what I'm seeing so that we can begin to have the conversation. So this is my daily conversation starter. If you want to know what I'm thinking, come on by. But more importantly, you're going to want to come by to know what everybody else is thinking. We have a really smart community. Again, surround yourself with good people. It's really important. And so I love the way Clara put it here. She said, so grateful for Peak Prosperity and this beautiful tribe. Here we are discussing vitamin D and recovery from that thing there. This is who we are. Peak Prosperity is a group of people who figured out there's massive change coming, and we want to be positioned for that. Step 1 is making sure you have the right information. Step 2 is taking action on that information. To help with step 2 and 1, You surround yourself with good people. People you don't have to start the conversation at 0. You can start at 85 on the conversation scale. Hey, the country's broke. What are you doing about that? Let's talk, right? You don't have to convince anybody of anything you already happen to believe, so or no. Now, here's the special offer. We are now doing 30-day, no questions asked, money-back guarantees. Come in, sign up, any reason whatsoever. I don't even care. You decide it's not for you. That's great. You don't even have to call anybody. We have a very easy bot that you can just type in and it'll respond to your request. So this is our offer. Come on by. What do you have to lose? We have a great community of people, and I think you absolutely need to come there because stuff is breaking down very, very rapidly right now. And I want you to be resilient. I want you to be prepared. I want you to be part of this community that's figuring this out. I want your intelligence in there for my own selfish benefit. And everybody wants to learn from each other in this environment. But the first thing is you got to make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people. That's what we do at Peak Prosperity. We run up a flag up the common sense flagpole and we say, we're having that conversation over here. All right. Thanks very much for listening, everybody. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.